Andrew's film just premiered here at the Toronto After Dark Film Festival, Home Movie, and I was wondering how did that come together?
So, Home Movie, wow, couldn't have asked me a more complex question. Well, Chris Denham was in Headspace. He's the star of Headspace, the first film I produced and directed that's a feature. And do you want me to direct the questions to you or the audience?
You can talk to me. That's how
Is that cool?
Yeah,
okay,
if it's easier for you, it's more comfortable.
Yeah. I'm going to talk to him for a second, guys. So, basically the situation is that Chris was in Headspace and he wrote a screenplay and he asked me to take a look at it. And I read the script and I thought it was really compelling. I thought it was well written. Very good characterizations and solid dialogue. So we went ahead and made the film, and it was a bit of a risk. It was right after The Girl Next Door, and financially at the time the company was in a place where it was a question of whether do we hold back or do we actually roll the dice. And because Chris, is a good friend, and also I really believed in him, we rolled the dice. And film turned out,
I think it turned
out pretty well. So, yeah.
And you also
at least that's what people say, for the most part.
How many festivals have you been to so far?
Well, we were at Sitges, and I can say it turned out well there. Chris actually ended up winning the Critics Award at Sitges for Best Up-and-Coming Director, the Citizen Kane Award, which was really cool. So, yeah, I was really kind of surprised and happy, and then we were going to be at Cine Europa in Spain, and there's a film festival in England as well we're going to be at, as well as a couple others. So, and we're at Fantasia.
Awesome.
As well. So.
Now, The Girl Next Door, I saw that quite a while ago, right?
Yeah.
And you produced that. That was a project that took a very long time to get together. Were you there from the beginning of that?
Yeah, I was there. Jack Ketchum wrote a book, and I was told by my producing partner William Miller, who's also our longtime cinematographer at Modern Cine, to take a look at the book, and I read the book. I was actually in Peru with my mother. I was taking a family vacation, she and I, and I was sick in the jungle and stuck for like 3 days, and I read that book, and I can tell you I've never felt worse. Reading The Girl Next Door in like 120-degree weather, that 200% humidity, it was tough, and I knew immediately that as a producer it would be a challenge to make the film, and the story was clearly important as it had been based on a true story, and certainly was compelled to be told through Jack Ketchum's fictionalized tale of child abuse in the 1950s, which was a cool decision to do it pre-1965 when it actually happened, because America was much more of a virgin kind of, burgeoning kind of, innocence, of course. So it actually was a good challenge, and we took it on, and given the fact that it was going to have to be done on a low budget, we were really challenged, and I like that. I like a film that challenges me.
Even before you guys probably got to production, there was a lot of supporters, but a lot of detractors.
Oh yeah, there's no question. A very controversial movie. I mean, to this day, I actually got an email yesterday from some guy saying, "I hope you go bankrupt from making that movie." And I was like, I'm not going to reply to this guy. It's just, it's like, because if you get so emotionally caught up with it, I mean, look, there are all kinds of people out there. It's an important story to be told because clearly, it spurred a lot of controversy and certainly conversation. And that's the whole point to make the film, is to get people to talk about these kinds of issues. And I think the director, Gregory Wilson, he was the only guy I really met at early meetings with directors that said, this movie can have a social value if we do it correctly, and this is how we can do it. And I in the first part I knew, but how do you apply that idea into making the film?
Well, I think ultimately at the end of the day, as far as genre films go and horror films, the film is horrific.
Yeah.
It's a true story. It's based on a true story. These things happen.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, there's no question.
And to deal with a subject like that takes courage in itself.
Yeah. No doubt. I mean, that's why Home Movie is so fascinating, because Girl Next Door really says nature causes you to become or turn into something. These children are being influenced by this older woman who's clearly from an abusive relationship, an alcoholic, and I think it's pretty clear cut why Ruth Chandler kind of lost it. I think it's it's really implied. So nature kind of, or rather I should say nurture, caused that, and certainly the violent children and their behavior is also kind of nurtured by this woman to become that way. And I think home movies the opposite, where it says no, it's nature. They are just that way. These two children are just born evil,
Yeah, they're just
and you
born that
can't
way.
do anything about it. And so to make two films that speak, to two totally different philosophical positions. And where do I stand on the issue? I don't know, because quite frankly, I'm not God, and I'm certainly not, going to say that I have some kind of insight, beyond the fact that I see both sides of the coin. So it's cool to, as a producer, to be able to represent both sides.
Well, that's what art is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, you're showing things and then letting people have a conversation about it, and maybe people think about it more. And
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you. If you call it art, then cool. I appreciate that. I guess it's yeah. I mean, it's definitely creative piece.
I think the horror genre over the years have always been maligned, but I think there's so many films we can quote now over the history of the horror genre that bridge the gap between an exploitation film and maybe something more like an art film or even subversive politics.
Yeah.
The world we live in is, I mean, we can argue it's always been horrific, but maybe we're so inundated with images on the internet and CNN or whatever.
Yeah.
We live in pretty horrific times, and I think the horror genre is really
Representative
addressing
of the
that.
times. I would agree with that. I mean, most of the best horror films were all in the 70s.
Yeah.
And we all
During
know
Vietnam.
what was going on in the 70s.
And now
so.
look at now.
Yep.
Some people would say a new Vietnam.
Yeah. I think didn't Canada go under martial law? That was 1972, I think.
I want to say
I don't know. I love Canada, so I do know a little bit about your politics too. And I think Nixon, was it Nixon who was told by who was the gentleman? It was a P.
Pierre Trudeau.
Right. Trudeau warned Nixon that if you try martial law in the United States and try to put the Black Panthers down and put all these people down, you're going to create martyrs basically out of. And it's so interesting because you look at films like Night of the Living Dead, and it's right. I mean, it's
Exactly.
speaking to the time, so it's very fascinating. I think.